So, on the line, we have Kate. She is, whoa, my screen went away. She is the co-founder and lead organizer of Friends of Impett Park, and she's also professor of psychology at Tri-C. And she's going to be talking about founding and the impact of the Friends of Impett Park. So kind of how she got to where she is, what kind of fun stuff they're up to, and I'm assuming she'll probably talk about the planting that Wild Ones helped with last year. So, Kate, I'll give you the floor. Um,
Ready now?
yes.
All right, hang on. Share screen. You can, okay. All right, can you see?
Yes, it looks great.
Awesome. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Kate Catanese, and as Janice, thank you for that lovely introduction. I am the lead organizer for Friends of Impett Park. I see that some of the people who've helped on this garden are here. Hi, Allison and Jessica, of course, and Janice. Um, some of you may have heard a little bit of this presentation because I think I gave a portion of it. I'm in the middle of a meeting and I am the presenter. Pardon me. Yes. All right, go shut the door.
Hey, this is real life. It's fine.
This is real life, and this is the mother that has been home with the child since Friday. No school Friday, no school Monday, and no school today.
Yep.
So things are a little crazy over here. Anyway, I don't know if you can see in the image, like a lot of people don't really have never heard of Impett Park. And you know, I like for people to kind of see where Impett Park is situated. On the map, you can kind of see that like here's Impett Park right here. This is the Rocky River Reservation all along here. This is Lakewood Park. So if you're familiar with Lakewood, we're just south of Lakewood, just south of 90. And in fact, if you look at like the geology of this area, there would have been a I don't know what the exact word to call it is, but like streams that would have run from Impett into the lake. We're in the Rocky River watershed, and we're a tiny like 30, well, not so tiny, 35-acre city park. We're one of the largest city parks in the Cleveland park system. Um, and you can kind of see from the Google Earth that about a third of our park is a tree canopy over here. And what's really interesting about our park, Impett Park, is that it was one of the last farmsteads, like working farms in the city of Cleveland proper, in the late 40s, when the city of Cleveland wanted to take the homestead that was there that belonged to the Impett family, and convert it into a recreation area, a city park. And the woman who lived there, the last remaining ancestor of the Impett family, well, the last person to live on the farm, her name was Bessie Impett. The city approached her. You know, they wanted to buy the land from her, to put the park there. They wanted to give her a very paltry sum of money, something like $36,000, something like this. And she took the city to court. She did not want to give up the land. She didn't want to give up the land for that paltry amount of money. I mean, they were going to take it anyway. It was an eminent domain sort of thing. And she took them to court. She won the court battle 2 weeks after she died. So there's kind of like a sentiment in our neighborhood that, Bessie fought really hard for this land. She wanted it to be preserved as much as possible, and that there was some sort of either agreement or a land restriction that was put into place, not to do anything with this wooded area. Now, I personally have looked at some of the deeds. I haven't found any evidence that is true, that that's the case. But the people that live in this neighborhood really feel strongly that this is, a very, very special and important aspect of this park is the tree canopy that's here. It's a pin oak forest. It's a wet woodland, and like you can see, it's about a third of the park, and it's actually the second largest tree canopy in a city of Cleveland park, second only to Rockefeller Park. So it's a pretty special little forest that we have there at Impett. So please feel free to stop me at any time. I feel like these Zooms are kind of strange, but if anybody has any questions or wants to ask anything, feel free to stop me. Anybody? No?
Did
Okay.
you say how old you think the stand is? Or how old has the stand been aged?
The forest?
The forest.
I mean, it is they're mature pin oaks. They're not so you'll have to forgive me because I'm like an environmentalist by accident. When I got involved in this park, kind of the conservation aspect really wasn't like at the forefront of my mind. Antonio, thank you for that question. But that is all to say that like I don't really know exactly how old the forest is. I just know that people who grew up in this neighborhood, grew up in the woods. Some of these trees, they're not, what do you call those trees when they're being logged? I can't remember. I'm sorry, my brain is mushy.
Forestry?
No, the special ones that we have in Cleveland. Maybe Allison knows.
Oh, the Grover Cleveland trees, or the no, Moses Cleveland trees.
Moses Cleveland, yes, yes. They're not Moses, they're not that old. So I don't know what the age of those trees are, but they are mature. So I don't know. However, and I should have put a picture up of this. I have the original survey of the property when they acquired it by the city. And they actually did a survey where they went through and they pinpointed every single tree that was there, what kind of tree it was, the diameter of the tree. And it's pretty incredible because actually there were trees everywhere. I mean, it was a farmstead there, and there were orchards as well. So, but the thought was that, I mean, people in this neighborhood think that this particular area of the park was supposed to be like a protected area. They think, and they assert that this was like the will of Bessie Impett, though I don't have any concrete documentation or evidence that is the case. But that is a very strong feeling that people have in this neighborhood. And so when we started working on Impett Park, that was kind of something that came up from the very beginning. So Antonio, I wish I knew the answer to your question. I just know that when Julie and Dave from Meadow City came and did like a forest walk with us, they said that they were not like, there were several levels to have it graded as a wetland area, and they were mature, but they weren't like the highest level of age, whatever that one was. I can't remember off the top of my head. So they're old, but they're not that old.
Thank you.
Well,
Sorry for the
that was a great answer.
very indefinite answer.
Yeah. Kate, just out of curiosity, I know there were pieces of the canopy that were destroyed because of the tornadoes, I believe, that went through, or the storms.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if, because I know some of the trees were going to get cut down, but were some of them left? And I'm curious, has the like, have we, has that been addressed? Because I know you guys tried to stop some of that. So also
So
out of curiosity, from a
yeah,
science and preservation perspective, did you guys leave some of it? Because I'd be curious to, like, Antonio's, like, has the tree rings have been counted, or like some of the other, from a citizen science perspective, been looked at from that.
so I'm just gonna skip ahead to that slide
Oh, okay.
since I have.
We can leave to the end.
Oh, okay, I'll leave it to the end then. Okay, that's fine.
Jumping the gun here.
Sorry, it's a great question though, Jessica, and just to answer it real quick, the answer is no. Okay, the answer is some of the trees were left, some of the trees were taken away. It is a mystery who decided to take them down, and where they went. Something that I should just kind of put out there from the get-go is that this is one of like a million parks that the city of Cleveland operates. We are a very huge span of a park system, very under resourced. The majority of the work that the urban forestry department has been doing has been like catching up on like a 5-year backlog of tree maintenance and tree maintenance requests. So there's not a lot in the way of kind of pushing toward logging the trees, cataloging the trees. But we did just this past year our Cleveland tree, I can't remember what it's being called right now. It's like our Cleveland Tree Commission basically was reinstated. And so maybe some of that stuff is on the horizon. But in the meantime, it's really up to kind of local groups to kind of keep an eye on things. But it's very difficult it's very difficult when you have a city that is so large with so many parks to take care of, with so many demands for maintenance, that things like our tree canopy in a park are something that kind of gets left to the side. But that's a great segue for kind of how we started our organization, because our park, you can kind of see from the image here, it's mostly ball fields. There's a playground from like the late 90s, a pool, some tennis courts, a parking lot, a football field, a rugby field, and then really just, open space. And for many years, people be like, oh, Impett Park, it's such a great park, but it needs this or it needs that. And so after the pandemic, like we kind of started this work after people were spending so much time in the park during the pandemic. And then after the pandemic, when I personally had a little bit more bandwidth to get involved with it, me and my co-founder Don Hill got together and said, well, what can we as citizens do to make this park a better place, to bring it up to speed, to revitalize it, and to make it a better place for all of our neighbors. So that's kind of where the beginning of our story. So Don and I decided that we were going to have this big event. And at the event, we invited Mayor Bibb and our council person, and Mayor Bibb brought his cabinet, and we kind of asked people like, what do you love about this park? And what do you want to see differently? Where do you see opportunities for growth? And so, one of the things that we felt really strongly about was that we didn't come into this work saying, this is what we want to do, and we're going to do this. We came into this work saying, how does this park best serve the people who use it? What are the things that people who use this park want to see more of? And what are the things that people want to see less of? And so we let the community tell us what the agenda should be. And then we started advocating based on the things that we heard back from the community. So we did this kind of brainstorming session at this event where we had people, write up on giant post-it notes like their ideas for the park, and then we created an online survey that kind of mimicked those questions. And I analyzed the survey data. My background is in research, so I had the skills to do this kind of work, and determined what were the things that people wanted. And so the whole reason we got connected with Wild Ones and our kind of sustainability work is because the number one thing that people said is they wanted the park to be more beautiful. They wanted to see flowers, they wanted it to be weeded, they wanted cleanup, they wanted trees and plants. And then the second most important thing to people, second most important thing to people was that they wanted us to take better care of the forest. We wanted more environmental preservation. The tree canopy was really important to people. And so that's kind of where our work began. So we started off in the spring of 2023 with some meetings that we had where we looked at these things that people wanted us to focus on, and then we invited experts to come and talk to us about how we could accomplish these goals. So we had the folks from the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District come and talk to us about native plants. Some of us started going to these, the virtual sessions with the biodiversity series. I took the Master Rain Gardener course. My husband took the tree stewardship training, and we had other people who were tree stewards as well that were already in our group. We invited experts, the urban forester, John Palmer, Colby Sattler, who was one of the original Western Reserve Land Conservancy, the creators of that course, our landscape architect from the city of Cleveland, and Matt Krem from the Metro Parks to come and talk to us about, what could we do with the woods? Like, what should we be doing? How should we be nurturing this environment? So in the spring, we did all these meetings that were kind of focused on getting expert advice about how to proceed. And as a result of that, we decided that we were going to do a rain garden. And after we heard from Meg Hennessy and Kirsten from the Soil District. And we're like, well, how are we going to pay for this? So I know Jessica wanted me to talk about money. So, I'll just throw it out there that there are all kinds of small grants floating around in your community. I mean, we're in Cleveland. So for us, like one of the major grants for doing community development is the Neighbor Up grant, which is operated out of the Cleveland Foundation. They might be separate now, but and so we applied for a Neighbor Up grant for they're like very small $5,000 grants, but it's enough to do something like a garden in your neighborhood. I see Kristen Planbeck's on as well. So sorry, I'm just noticing people popping in. Some of the people who do volunteer with us. So anyway, so that's kind of where the seed that was planted for this work. And like I said, I didn't know anything about native plants. I mean, other than like recycling and, trying to be, sustainably minded. This is not my area of expertise at all. And so I think that's kind of like one of the reasons that we've been so successful is that, we want to learn, and we want to include organizations and groups and people, like anybody with expertise. We're like, come on board. We're all about creating those connections and those collaborations. Anybody want to jump in and ask a question or make a comment?
I was just going to say, Kate, as a landscape architect who, deals with community engagement with certain projects, I loved your last slide and how you guys approached, like the question of what do we do? well, let's let the community decide. And that was, you hit the nail on the head, and it looks like it was a success. And obviously it helped that your background is research to help analyze all of that. It's not easy. So kudos to you guys for that was, it made my heart happy to see all of that.
Well, part of the reason for that, Janice, and I mean, our story is so long and complicated, and part of the reason for that, Janice, is because during the pandemic, when the city was, the parks were, things were closed, the landscape architects, the people that worked at the city, and the council people like got together, they were doing more like tabletop activities, okay, because there wasn't a lot happening in terms of construction or things that were going on in the the recreation facilities and stuff like that. So they were like, well, what are we going to do at this time? Well, let's come up with some master plans for these neighborhood parks.
Because why not? We have
'Cause
money
why
to
not?
spend.
Why not? Okay, and I'm just gonna show you. Like, here is like some of these master plans.
I
don't know if you guys
love
can
it.
see this, okay? Like, I have boards from all these things all over my office. But the point is, so they created these master plans, but they didn't get any input from people.
Yeah, that's not the way to do that.
Okay, and then one day, it's like, we're like, okay, why are the tennis courts being refinished? Like, that would not have been the thing that our community would have decided to do.
Well, now though, do people play pickleball there?
Yes, there were, but the pickleball lines were not created until after. Okay.
Right.
It was just a refinishing of, and some of that was because, well, okay, the city line item budget for tennis courts. Okay,
Right.
well, who needs a tennis court? There's a lot of bureaucracy that goes into,
Oh, I'm sure,
how park amenities are improved.
Right.
Budgeting and just all kinds of stuff. But
Mhm.
but that was kind of one of the kind of impetus for us getting together and saying, this is our park.
Yeah.
This is our park. We want it to be what we want it to be. We don't want people who don't even live in the city of Cleveland deciding what's in our park, who hasn't come and talked to us and asked us, how is this park used? What do y'all want? What is the best use of this space? So that was one of the impetuses for me and Don getting together and saying, like, the residents are the one that have to drive the change, because we are the ones that know how the park is used and how, and what people want.
Absolutely.
And we didn't want to come in with an agenda. We just wanted to say, like, you guys, you tell us what you want, and let's gather the data and look at what comes out, and then, be more thoughtful about planning.
Yeah.
So this is what we did. And as a result of this work, we knew we wanted to do this garden. We got the money to do the garden. So our grant was approved. It was like a little bit less than $5,000. But there was another stumbling block. And the stumbling block was that the city, we had to get permission to do this. And that, I won't even go into it, but it was almost a year from the time we applied for the license agreement to do any kind of work in the park that it was actually approved. So the planning of our garden was really stalled by this very long legal and bureaucratic process to get permission to do anything, including any digging, planting, weeding, anything. So, that is kind of unique to Cleveland. I don't think it's the case in other people's communities. I'm not really sure where people on the call are from, but your community might already have procedures in place to get this type of thing done. And in order for us to get this done, I leaned very heavily on our council person, Councilman Slife, who has been an amazing partner in this work, but also other organizations and groups that were doing similar things, like Peggy Spaeth and John Barber from Friends of the Lower Lake. They were really helpful to me. They gave me their license agreement. They're like, this is what it looks like. And I had to present that to the city and like, this is what this is the document that we need. So it was a long and torturous process in which I probably could have birthed an entirely new baby. But luckily that was not happening either. We were just birthing a garden and it took us quite some time to cook it up. In the meantime, the soil district already had a license agreement with the city of Cleveland. And so they were so generous with us to donate the Rocky River Watershed Council. Meg Hennessy from the soil district called me up one day or sent me an email and was like, well, we have these trees. What do you think? Should we plant them at Impett? And I was like, that's perfect, because we have nothing to do right now because we can't do anything in this park. And then we just started going rogue. And that's when we got connected with Wild Ones. We wanted to do an invasive species removal day. I think I reached out to y'all and we're like, we don't know what we're doing. Like, come and show us how to do this. And Janice and Jessica came. You can see the picture that's, right over here. And we just started, chopping things down in the woods. That was awesome. So while we were waiting for all of this to happen, we also started mulching trails. We had no mulch to do that with. So me and a bunch of mostly women would go down to the metro parks with our trucks or with our hatchbacks and just load up wood chips, drive them into the park and dump them. And then we, along with John Palmer from the arborist, one of our kind of volunteer arborists, would go in and start kind of chipping away there were trails in the woods that had been there for decades. And they were totally overgrown because nobody was caring for them. Kind of the sentiment in the neighborhood was like, oh, it's woods. The woods just take care of themselves. But, as many people on this call probably know, like, that's not really how it works. You have to have maintenance in order for the things that you want to grow and the things that you don't want to grow and so forth. So we started kind of paving trails, doing invasive species removal, and then planting these trees and shrubs with the soil district. And that was really those were our first projects. Any questions? Anybody want to stop me for anything? Feel free. All right. So, and while we were doing this, these are just like some examples of the type of stuff that we would do while we were waiting to get permission to actually plant a garden. So this is John in the left-hand side, John Palmer, tree PhD. You might have seen him on, I think he's on like sometimes the morning shows on TV, and he's just so awesome. He lives in our neighborhood, and he came and he would meet up with us while we were doing work, and we would just stop what we were doing and he would walk us around the park and show us the trees. And here he is, he's showing in the corner there, the way that the tree roots on the pin oaks grow when they're looking for water. And we'd collect trash. One of the big problems that we have in this park is that people dump stuff in the park. Especially people who have homes that are alongside the park. They tend to think that, well, this is the place for them to dump their yard waste or their washing machines, pretty much anything. So here's just like some landscape edging that somebody was just like, well, I don't need this anymore. I'm just going to throw this in the park. There's Dave and Julie from Meadow City came out one day, and Julie used to do wetland delineation surveys, and so she brought her survey stuff and did kind of like a mock wetland delineation with us. They didn't have all the tools that they needed to formally do this delineation, but they were like, this is a wet woodland. Part of the reason that we were going to do a rain garden is because there was so much water in the park. And as we started engaging with more experts on the park itself, what we learned is that what we didn't need a rain garden. What we had was a wet forest. So the garden that we decided to do, and this is kind of the spot that you can see where we were thinking, this is like a big open green space near a t-ball field that is just wet all winter, fall. It's just always wet. And you know, we're gonna do a rain garden here, and then Julie and Dave were like, this is a wetland area. What you need is a wetland garden. And so we kind of shifted gears. What we had a grant for a 500 square foot garden turned into a 3,000 square foot garden, because we were looking at the pattern of where the water was and wanting to plant things in those locations. So we spent like a whole last winter, the whole season, kind of preparing this 3,000 square foot plot. And also while we were doing that, we were continuing to have our kind of Sunday meetups where we were planting trees. This is Dan Lehman. He's one of the Western Reserve Land Conservancy tree stewards in Cleveland. And Dan like pretty much adopted our park once he saw, you know, the potential for being able to really build up the tree canopy. Here he is showing some students and their parents from St. Joseph Academy, some of our volunteers, how to plant trees. And so we were planting trees over the winter. We were doing kind of cardboard mulching over these wet areas to kind of kill off whatever was there. And then we started planning our native planting day.
Hey, who did you say that was helping you?
Dan in the corner with the trees, that's Dan Lehman. He is a Western Reserve Land Conservancy tree steward, and he also serves as one of the citizen members of Cleveland's tree. I want to say it's the Cleveland Tree Commission, but that is not what it's called. The Cleveland Tree Commission is something else. I don't know, maybe Kristen knows. Kristen, do you know what it's called in Cleveland?
That's okay if not.
Yeah. It's like Mayor Bibb's council, like tree council. And there's some of the elderberry that were growing from the shrubs that we planted with the soil district. So this became our major project for last summer. Jessica and Ray were instrumental in the planting of this garden. Jessica serving as our captain, a captain of all activities, and Ray designing the garden and leading the planting day. You know, I had no problem planting a 500 square foot rain garden, but when it came to a 3,000 square foot, you know, wet garden, I wanted to bring in the experts to help us, you know, really figure out how to do this so that it would be something that would last, something that would be beautiful, and something that would really engage the community. So I think I see Allison in one of those pictures. And I don't know about Kristen. I don't see her anywhere, but I just want to say,
yeah,
once oh, there she is. Do you see yourself?
Yeah, I see her on the lower left. Yeah.
Oh, there. I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I'm in there with the orange shirt. Yeah.
Oh, are you in there too, Kristen?
Yeah.
Awesome. So we planted this in June, and then after we planted this garden, it was hot, dry for like weeks. And I won't get into it because I know I've talked quite a bit so far. So I want to leave time for questions. But if anybody needs any creative problem solving as to how you're going to water a garden that is 300 feet from the closest fire hydrant, definitely I can help you solve that problem. And so can Kristen, who helped us water these plants after they were planted, and it was very, very dry. And Jessica and I talked about, you know, kind of creating like a handbook for how to do these kind of gardens, because you think like, oh, I'm going to plant the garden and that's it. But it really depends on how big your garden is. Our garden was so large that we didn't finish, you know, we didn't finish everything for weeks, because it took an entire day to plant everything. And then it probably would have been an extra day to do the watering. It took an entire day to get the site prepared, figuring out where the plants were going to go. Thank you, Jessica, for enduring that.
And the day of, just to give it an idea of not just the space of 3,000 square foot, but I think we had 25 plus volunteers on the day of. So like it was quite the effort.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge undertaking. And then we had to mulch it. And like that didn't even include really mulching the garden. So we did this like Mulchapalooza event. And then we had like people who donated the pavers, like the stones. We had a day where we put stones down, and then it took us like 3 more months to finish those stones because we ran out of stones. I mean, this is really like we are like bootleggers. We just do whatever it takes to get it done, taking from whatever people have to give us, and trying to make the most of it. And that's kind of the way that we view our volunteers as well. We're very much like, come as you are. If you can dig, you can dig. If you have a shovel, you can use your shovel. If you don't have this, we'll find something else for you to use. You want to come once? That's amazing. We love you. Thank you for coming. If you want to come every week, sure, that's great too. Like, there's no judgment, there's no expectation. We put the call out to high school students who needed service hours. If high school students would come once, that's great. We'll put you to work, and it'll, we're very much like, do what you can, do as much as you can, or as little as you can. Every effort counts. And like, one of the things that my my Sicilian grandmother, she would always say in Italian, she had this like phrase that's basically like, drop by drop, you make the sea, which is basically like every little tiny bit matters, and it all adds up to something greater than it is. And so that's really like our philosophy of how we approach volunteerism.
Can I ask how you prepared the area for planting? Did you and kill the grass and the weeds and all the stuff that was there?
So this was an enormous plot, as you can see. And I could not find my photos I got a new phone, and my phone, I actually just plugged it in to see if I could find these photos. It was a huge plot of land. We were like, okay, let's try this cardboard mulching technique. And so what we did is we dragged leaf litter, because there's leaf litter all over the park. So you can see this is the plot. We were dragging leaf litter over to the garden because we didn't have anything. We didn't have any resources to do this with tarps. We would put the leaf litter down, and then we would mulch it with cardboard, or put the cardboard down and then put the leaf litter on top. I think that if we were to do it again, and part of the reason we had to do it that way is because it was so wet. Like, there's no way that you could have pulled the sod up with a sod cutter. You just couldn't do it. It was too, I mean, there were parts of this, you can kind of see in this photo right there, there's a mallard duck there. Like this, there's a spot that it was at its deepest is like 9 inches of water. That is, probably likely, hopefully will convert to like a true vernal pool someday, as we're kind of rehabilitating it. But I don't think that was the best course of action. I'm not sure. Like, it didn't work out perfectly, and I'll show you in a minute how we know that.
Jessica dropped a photo in the chat if
Oh,
anybody's
does she? What
interested.
is it of?
It just shows a little bit better of the leaf and the cardboard a little bit closer. So
Oh yeah, Jessica, send me those pictures. Oh God, yes, you can see it.
Yeah, I have several more.
Yeah.
But
Oh
if
my
you had a
goodness.
unique situation, because most gardens, have more of the European grass or something else, like with you having the wetland.
And there were like sedges growing in there. And so there were parts of it that we wanted to maintain because that was like the natural growth. And yeah, there was a little bit of a battle over that. What to keep and what to get rid of. So these are just some shots of some of the plants and just kind of the cool stuff that is in the garden. We grabbed these benches off of the curb that somebody was throwing out and just brought them into the park because there was no seating anywhere nearby. We had money for signage, so we have a sign printed. That's what it looks like on the left hand side there. And we have the hole dug for the sign, but we have not installed it yet because it's been so cold. So yes, I see Allison saying like, I love that you kept the sedges, and we did, but I'm not sure if that was the best thing for us to do or not. If we had permission, we probably just should have burned the whole thing down, done like some controlled burning. Although I don't even think that would have worked. It was so wet. Because what ended up happening is we had this like very dry spell where we were watering as much as we could. And I wish I had pictures of that because that's pretty hilarious to see us dragging a hose. I don't know if you can see like where that house is behind the bench. That is where the hydrant is located. And we had 300-foot hoses that we strung together and brought them all the way over to the garden. And then when we did not have the capacity to do that, because that took like an hour in and of itself to set up the hoses and get everything going, and then like another 2 hours to water with the sprinkler. We had like kitty litter containers that have like handles on them, and we filled them with water at the concession stand. Kristen, I might have some photos of it. I have to find them. And then we would leave them at the side of a fence, and people like Kristen would come, and we had this kid that lived over there, like this 7th grader who just is amazing. Effie's kid, this is Effie right here, who would come and just use the jugs to water the plants. Like we had them propped up on rocks and sticks so that they would kind of trickle in. We just, it's totally, we just bootleg however, the motto is whatever it takes. Okay, so because it was very wet, it was very dry, and then we had all these storms, and it became, we weren't working in the garden for several weeks because it was raining for weeks. And when that happened, all of these grasses, invasive grasses that we had thought we had covered up with cardboard mulching started exploding. And so you can kind of see like this, the after is what it was supposed to look like. This is how it was when we planted it. And then during this wet spell where we couldn't get in, this is what happened with the grasses, the invasive grasses. So we spent weeks pulling out these invasives because we did not want to use an herbicide. So we'll see what happens in the spring. Janice, any thoughts?
I have no advice other than try and catch it early. But it's hard when it's first coming up. You're like, oh, is that something good or something bad?
So we consulted with our experts, Jessica and Ray, and Ray gave us some amazing advice on what to do, and was ultimately like, if that doesn't work, then you will have to use an herbicide. We're trying not to, but we do recognize that sometimes that is what is necessary. You can see we continued the bags of invasives. We continued pulling them and throwing them out. We had many hands to make light the work, but usually, it would be like 3, 4, 5 people at a time. Like, again, like we're limited by the capacity that we have. During this time was when we had this huge storm. We lost probably 7 mature oak trees, pin oaks and swamp oaks. And this is, we sent a letter to the city because they came in, one of the contractors came in and cut down 6 mature pin oaks that lined the West 153rd Street. One of them cracked and fell on somebody's house. And then when the contractor came in, they just clear cut all of them.
You totally missed dinner.
Yeah, I know, sweetie. Can you give me a few more minutes? Thank you. I don't know where the interceptor is. There is someone supposed to be intercepting this child.
They're eating dinner, Kate.
Yeah, right. So, we sent a letter about our opposition to the way that these trees were managed. There was likely no arborist that evaluated them before they came in and just cut them all down. Like, probably maybe 1 or 2 of them needed to go, but the others were just cut right down. And you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see in the photo, but they're like, people came and put like stuffed animals on the tree stump, like as a, like a shrine sort of thing. And in the meantime, part of the reason that there have been so many challenges in Cleveland City Parks is that probably about 20 years ago, former Mayor Jackson, in order to balance the budget, combined parks and recreation with public works. So we have not had a dedicated parks and recreation department in at least 2 decades. And just recently we hired our director, Alex Nichols. She came from Shaker Heights. This is her with me in the woods. We're walking around the woods and we're showing her the things that we've been doing. And so I really have great hope that she is going to right the ship. She is very invested. She spent an hour and a half with us at the park, listening to us and taking notes on the things that we were saying, like really, really wanting to work with the citizens to bring our parks up to speed. Well, I don't know if you can see, like in the corner here, this is our next project. So this is the sign. I can't see it because Janice's head is in front of it on my computer, but let me see. I think you all can see it. This is the next place that we're going to plant a garden. And we have all kinds of plants that we are fostering. So we have plants that were left over from our native planting day in June. We have plants from Meadow City that they had to take off the shelf because they were just not healthy enough to sell, that we're fostering for different places in the park to do more plantings. I have plants that I've been, we're just cobbling together whatever resources we can to make the park a more beautiful place. Because before this garden that we planted, there was nothing other than what was growing naturally in the woods and would often just be cut down because maintenance people don't know what any of it is. And in fact, they asked me if they could what is it called, Janice?
Brush hog
the perimeter of the woods. And I was like,
No.
I don't think
Please don't.
so. I said, they were like, well, we just want to check with you and see if that's something that you think we should do. And I'm just like, no.
People get mower happy. I don't know. They just see like something to cut down, and it's like this drive within to like cut stuff down.
Well, and it's also that like there are 70 some parks on the west side of Cleveland. There are like 2 people that oversee those parks.
Yeah.
We have no resources for large scale maintenance. And that's why groups like ours, friends of groups in places where there are fewer resources, are very, very important, because we help increase the capacity and increase the capacity of what can be done in these parks by taking ownership over the parks and by stewarding them. And again, like, this is not the only kind of work that we do. We also have some public art activities that are going on. Kristen and Janice and I'm not sure who else might have worked on, or if Allison worked on this at all. This is we also raised money. We crowdsourced half of the necessary funds that Cuyahoga Arts and Culture matched for us, and got like a $6,000 project going to do a mural on the pool house. And again, when we did this mural, we did it with community input. We had community design sessions, which our artists led. This is our artist, Bernadette Glorioso, who is just incredible and amazing. And then we had hundreds of people come and paint this mural. It was like a paint by numbers mural. It's amazing. And it was so energizing. People just loved doing this type of project. And we also integrated into the project, I don't know if you can see it, but on the mural, there's some of the native plants that we planted in the garden are in here. And then Bessie Impett had this very famous lilac bush that was like 6 feet tall. So here's the lilac bush. And there were horses in the pin oak forest. And then there were themes in here of the solar eclipse, the cyclone, which is the famous roller coaster. It was just an incredible project. And then we also kind of led the charge in the redesign of our playground. And the type of playground that we designed, again, when we knew, well, actually, even before we knew we had any money for a playground, that was one of the big things. Our playground was old, it was dangerous, it was not developmentally appropriate. And we started doing a participatory design with community members to find out what kind of playground people wanted. And as a result of that participatory design process, we learned how few resources there were available for families of children with disabilities to actually play with their peers. And so we created a universally designed playground with the city and with our Burke Recreation, Snyder Recreation, the company here in Cleveland that helped us design this playground, where we created a playground that exceeds ADA standards by over 200%. We wanted to create a place where all families could play together, that siblings, disabled and abled and non-disabled, could play alongside one another. And we cut the ribbon on that playground in November. So we got lots of projects happening, lots of different wings of our group. And I'm happy to answer questions or expand on anything that caught your attention.
Thank you, Kate. I think everything that you've done is just so inspiring, which is why we invited you, and thank you so much for accepting and sharing your story. One thing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to share with the group. I know you'd researched and worked with some other groups like Kate's Friends of group and things like that. if I'm not mistaken, one of the extra steps you even took was to become a nonprofit yourself to get support, correct?
We have not done that.
Oh,
So
you haven't done that?
no, we
Okay,
have
we
not
were
done that.
talking about it then. Okay, that's why
We're talking about it, but you know, it's an extra level of organization that we're not quite ready to have. What we have is a fiscal sponsor. So in Cleveland, there are these things called community development corporations, and other municipalities have them too. But in Cleveland, our neighborhoods function with the support of these development organizations in each neighborhood. Ours is the West Park Cams Neighborhood Development Corporation, and every neighborhood has one. Okay. And it's kind of like a public-private sort of thing where they get money from City Hall, but then they also have their nonprofits. They get nonprofit money as well, or they raise money as nonprofits, and then they work in the neighborhood to address issues in that neighborhood. And so they serve as our fiscal sponsor. So they have our account. They have our account. They deposit our money. They sign, over the checks, and they like watch over it legally. They're like our parent organization.
Yeah, because the thing is, so many people think, oh, you have to become a nonprofit or something like that. But if there's already some of these other things in place, I think that just makes it that much easier for people to start their own Friends of groups within their own local communities. So thank you for sharing that example of like how you're engaging with your city.
And it can be anything. So just to kind of give people an idea of how they could do this in their community, like our fiscal sponsor is West Park Cams Neighborhood Development Corporation. But I know that like Friends of Clarkfield, which is also in Cleveland, their fiscal sponsor for a long time was like a church in the neighborhood. And the church served as their fiscal sponsor. I know that Peggy Spaeth and John Barber I don't know if they're their own nonprofit now, but one of the pieces of advice that Peggy had given me up front was like, you don't need to be your own nonprofit. Let somebody else handle that. You just focus on doing the things that you want to do. I can't remember who their fiscal sponsor was, but I want to say it was, some organization in the Heights that served as their fiscal sponsor for a long time. So yeah, you don't have to, you don't have to have a board and have the bylaws and all of this stuff. Like, you can find another organization that wants to sponsor you, and they can serve that role to manage your financial stuff. They also provide us with the insurance that is necessary. So in order to do the work in the park, we had to have I can't remember what kind of insurance it's called, but we needed to have the liability insurance, and they hold the liability insurance, and we operate the volunteers, but they all sign waivers that are insured by the Community Development Corporation. So like, for example, Keep Lakewood Beautiful, I think Friends of maybe Madison Park, I think Keep Lakewood Beautiful might be their fiscal sponsor. There's organizations in other municipalities that serve in this capacity.
I was gonna say, oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say the development corporations that you're talking about, CDCs, like they usually are typically in more, like urban city centers, like Cleveland. I know Columbus has one, Cincinnati has a really big one to help out their more urban neighborhoods. So that's definitely a big option for, if you are in, greater Cleveland. But then I would imagine it would turn to a different organization as you're trickling out of the the urban center. So
Yeah, and I mean, you can,
CSEs are great.
yeah, they have supported us so much.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I know Jessica was furiously putting more pictures
I
in
need
the
to get
chat,
these
which
pictures.
are lovely, from the mural painting day.
I don't know how to get the pictures on my. Well, I appreciate the
you,
opportunity
Kate.
to talk about this. I'm also,
Yes.
available if anybody has questions, wants to chat more. I realize now that I'm saying this, that there was somebody over the winter break that had emailed me that I haven't gotten back to. But Friends of Impett Park at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can sign up for our newsletter. We're always looking for people to help us with all kinds of greening up sorts of activities. We usually meet when the weather's good on Sunday mornings. We haven't met in quite a while in the park on Sundays because it's been cold and wet and snowy and icy and so forth. But we've also had volunteers that come and do things at other times, like Jennifer and Bruce from Wild Ones, have come during the week to do things. We're willing to, work with people and their schedules if they're interested in volunteering.
Well, thank you again, Kate, for being such an inspiration and sharing your story with us.
Yes, I'm happy to.
Now go eat some dinner.
I want to figure out how to get these pictures out of the chat that Jessica sent.
I sent you a bunch from the one personally to your email, Kate. I'll have to send the other batch to you afterwards.
Today or
Oh,
earlier?
I sent it while you were chatting, since you asked me to send you.
Oh,
pictures.
okay, great.
I didn't send you the mural ones. I sent you the park, or when we did the garden stuff the day before and things like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure I have the pictures somewhere. I mean, I have so many pictures of Impett Park. I have to buy an entire hard drive just to host them all.
Yeah.
I believe it. I believe it.
All
Well,
right,
thank
so-
you, Kate.
Yes, I'm happy to. And I just want to say I love Wild Ones. You guys have been amazing. I have learned so much. Ray's wetland presentation, and when Dave did the soft surroundings, and just all the webinars. And I just wish that I did not have a job so that I could just be at everything and do everything. Like I really wanted to do the winter sewing. It's just, you guys are amazing and you offer such tremendous opportunities for getting people involved in their own backyards. And I just want to thank you for everything that you have done to support us at Friends of Impett Park, but also me personally and my expanding my knowledge and my passion for native plants.
Thank you, Kate. And we definitely look forward to future partnerships.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.